happy new year 2022 it is. I'm so happy to be back. I've actually been having a lot of technical difficulties. Okay, if I'm honest, it's really been because of the fact that I've just been recording too much information. So I've told you that I'm currently using my phone for my podcast. So the editing software that I use does not allow me to record more than 60 minutes. So I was like, oh, okay, no, 60 minutes is pretty cool. So I recorded a whole planets in the third house for 55 minutes. And when it was time to save the video with all of the edits and everything else, it just didn't allow me to save it. So here I am attempting again, and I'm just like, you know what? I just hope that, I can really come through for you guys, because honestly, I've been trying to make sure that my podcast really does provide a lot of valuable information. And of course, if I'm having a constraint of time, it does make it a bit difficult to achieve that. But here I am again, recording a planet in the third house, and hoping that this time, it's much better than before. I am your host, GiGi, and welcome to the Jules with Gem podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and choosing to, give me an ear, and just listen, because let's admit it, there could be other things that you'd much rather be doing. So your time spent is definitely appreciated. If you'd like, definitely do hit that sub button so you can be notified when I do post new content. Please do like, please do share, please do comment. I would actually appreciate it if you commented more, because I feel like that's when we get to engage like on a one-on-one level, which really this is what this channel is about, is just to engage about astrology and about things of spiritual nature, esoteric knowledge, and all those good stuff. So thank you once again for tuning in. As you guys may have noticed, I did start a new series called The Planets in the Houses. And if you're not familiar with the houses, and their energy, then I'd suggest that you backtrack a bit and go to my previous videos where I do speak in depth about, the planets and their energies, so that you can get a more comprehensive understanding of what it is that I'm talking about, so it doesn't seem like I am speaking gibberish and a whole different language altogether. Okay, so I've done the first house, which is about self. I've done the second house, which is about, our values and our priorities. So now we're moving on to the third house. So the third house is just basically about, your basic learning abilities. It's about your neighbors. It's about your immediate family. It's about, short distance traveling, like, a weekend away. If you live in Johannesburg, it's like a weekend away to Durban, or a weekend away to Hartbeespoort, those types of travels, or even the travel that you do like on a daily basis. Like, are you really somebody that travels a lot on a daily basis, or are you just, the third house would be able to indicate to somebody who's actually looking at your chart if this is the case or not. Even your education, like your childhood education, is also based on the sign of the third house, or how you made it, or the planets in the third house, or how you may have perceived, your early education will also be here. How you make decisions, how you apply your logic abilities to decision making. I think that's how's your critical thinking, what's your writing style, your basic learning abilities, as I have said, and communication abilities, your skills. And those are basically the themes of the third house. 1, 2, 3 planets in the third house. So Sun in the third house. Sun in the third house, I think, is blessed with a lot of creative energy. It's blessed with intuition to kind of pick up on energy shifts, vibes, and even thoughts of others is quite strong in this house. I think you just have a way with how you communicate, with how you write, or however it is that you choose to express yourself. You're just able to be extremely convincing. I don't want to say convincing because it may have a bit of a negative connotation to it, but I do want to say maybe that, like, you're just extremely relatable. You're that type of person that is just somebody who can relate, and people feel that they can relate to you. And I mean, you being able to relate to people can be a good or bad thing. It just kind of depends on, what your intentions are. If your intentions obviously are, bad, then of course, then it's going to be negative. But if they are good, then then it's obviously going to be a positive interaction. I would say though, because this is the life force, you do want to keep your intentions quite pure. You don't want to go around just spilling negative vibes to people, so please do bear that in mind. It also just depends, of course, on how the sun is aspected, and I think it's also important to note that it also depends on your journey, because obviously the amount of work that you do on your journey will determine how you deal with these situations and how you most work with the energies that you are provided with. So definitely do make sure that you do some work on yourself as well, because that will just improve the overall relationships that you have with people in your life. So that's just me dropping some nuggets. Like I said, maybe with the sun in the third house, probably you're extremely clever. Even in primary school, you might have just been that kid that was just brilliant. You like socializing just comes easily to you because you're able to relate to anybody, honestly. And I think there's a lot of value placed on your intelligence here. So you're definitely just the person who enjoys engaging in reading, writing, on social media. You might even be interested in journalism. You may even have a blog that might be quite popular, or you just may be popular, in your neighborhood, or you may have siblings that, are quite popular. So it just depends on how the sun is aspected, and that is what will paint the full picture. So moon in the third house, a very active moon, I must say. There's just a constant buzzing of thoughts, there's a constant buzzing of ideas, a to-do list, jokes, or even journal entries, or you just forgot an entry that you needed to write, but there's always just something going on. You may even remember that you need to call your mom, your sister, or even your brother back, because you're just like, you know what, I don't want to speak to them now, I'll probably call them later, type 5, because you're probably in the middle of 5,000 other things at the time you receive the call. This placement also suggests that you are quite emotionally open. I think you're quite a genuine conversation starter, and mind you, I said conversation starter because I didn't want to say you're good at striking small talk, because I just feel like that just seems ingenuine, because the energy of moon in the third house is just basically somebody that's able to be relatable to everyone. And I think this is the case because like I said, the third house is about communication. So moon in the third house is always trying to find ways to communicate with people so that they can become more emotionally aware, because a lot of the times and I know people have always said, oh no, moon in the third house people, or moon in Gemini people, are not emotional, and that's actually not the case. We actually feel a lot of emotions. We're just not able to give people a proper description of those emotions because we ourselves don't even know what it is. So we use communication as a tool to help us understand our communication. To help us understand our emotions, I don't know how many times I've actually spoken to my friends or people around me, people close to me, and they've actually described what I'd be feeling in my heart of hearts. And then I go back to the person and I'm like, oh, you know what? This is actually how I felt about the entire situation. But ask me spot on how I feel about a particular thing, person, or place, then I'm not really able to give you that much, feedback, because I wouldn't have had a chance to process it. You know what I mean? So that's why sometimes it's more easier for me to be more logical, because with logic, it's like something that comes instant. That's another thing to note about moon in this house. Logic just comes instantly, because you're constantly observing, you're constantly analyzing, you're constantly engaging, you're constantly communicating. It's just easier to kind of pick up on people's behaviors. It's easier to pick up on people's feelings. It's easier to pick up on people's thoughts. It's easier to pick up on differences in behaviors, because you're constantly in that logical state. So when it comes to your own emotions or processing your own thoughts, it becomes a bit harder, because you're not constantly observing your own thoughts. You're constantly observing the actions and behaviors and thinking patterns of other people. So I think that's also the challenge here. This is quite an intuitive moon, because obviously, like I said, they're able to pick up on shifts. This is also the moon. So, I think, and I also attribute this to them being quite emotionally open. They are able to be more accommodating to people's emotions. They are extremely understanding to people's emotions. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind here. A lot of people will obviously think that you're not really emotional and that you're quite logical, but I really do think that you're sadly mistaken if you do think that this is the case. So you may also experience quite you may have just that have like relentless energy about you, or nervous energy, just you constantly anxious, or you might feel like you're constantly running out of time, or there's something that you needed to do, or you're just not doing enough. Like there's just you're constantly battling with being still, with being stable, if I can put it that way. So I think the lesson here is just to try and step back, focus your energies on activities that will lessen your anxiety. You might be interested in writing, you might be interested in engaging in conversation on social media, or even with people around you. Traveling for a weekend and just change of scenery may be really good for you, or even talking to your siblings, or anything that calms you down. I think you need to spend a lot of time with yourself, because you're always in a state of observing other people. I think it would really do you good to observe your feelings as well, to take the time to observe yourself, your motivations behind certain behaviors, to try and figure out how you genuinely feel about situations that are happening around you. Just the same way you take care of other people emotionally is the same way that you need to cater for yourself emotionally as well. So Venus in the third house. I love Venus in the third house. It's such a cute energy. Conversations definitely do flow easily here with Venus. So Venus is about how we love. Venus is about love, period. Okay, how we love, what we value, and I think it's also an indicator of how we would like to receive love. So of course the third house deals with communication. So with Venus here, it could just indicate that you are just the person that just brings everybody together with your communication skills, or with your social skills, or because of the fact that you're just so poised, you just have so much grace about you. You're just that person that just knows social etiquette. You were probably just born with just knowing that, okay, you need to these are the types of things that you need to do. You're just somebody who's really pleasurable in social interactions. You're just really the person who's kind of like the mediator. You're the person that really just kind of brings balance. Venus, of course, is the planet of Libra. It's also the planet of Taurus. And if you know anything about Libra and Taurus, these are the signs that really don't like to be engaged in any drama. That's why it takes Taurus particularly long to have an outburst, and that's why Libra strives so much to keep things balanced, or as other people may say, they like to be people pleasing, but they're really not people pleasing if they're just trying to keep the peace. I think for them it's more about keeping harmony. Of course, this might play to their detriment, it just depends, but the overall energy of Venus here is just basically being that person that just looks beyond what is currently happening and really seeks to bring balance, to bring harmony, to bring peace. This is the person that will smooth over any disputes. Because they're considered quite diplomatic, they just know what to say, how to say it, and they just know how to relate to others without being too pushy. Because remember, it's Venus, so it's not really going to be, it's not going to be forceful like Mars, for example. Okay, I don't want to say that, but yeah, I just wanted to give you an example of how that may be interpreted. So, I think relations of any kind here are based on forging friendships. And those friendships are obviously based on just having similar interests. So they like to be around people who have similar interests, or are quite intelligent, or just have an interest in a variety of different topics, because of course with the Venus being here, it also means that they are likely to get quite bored quickly. That also pertains to the sun, it also pertains to the moon as well. So they really want to be with people who can stimulate them mentally, and if that's not the case, then So I think these are the people that also might enjoy reading, communicating, writing, and I think one of their love language might also be words of affirmation, or just giving words of affirmations to themselves, or even giving words of affirmations to others. I used to actually date somebody who had Venus in the third house, and no, they actually didn't have Venus in the third house. Our composite had Venus in the third house, and I swear we were constantly writing like little love notes to each other, and just constantly reassuring the other that what, I love you, you're valuable to me, and things like that, and it's just so sweet. Like, it's amazing how far a letter can go. So communicating here is definitely something that they're really into, because it brings them a sense of comfort. Remember that Venus also represents comfort. So wherever Venus is, you want to bring a sense of comfort to, this house, or you want to experience the themes of that house comfortably. So they want to make sure that, communication is comfortable. They want to make sure that their interactions are quite swift and seamless and effortless. They just want to be around good vibes, which is not really a bad thing, but also it just depends on how the third house is aspected, because of course if Venus is maybe aspected to Pluto, then that will obviously change the nature of how these interactions would be. So connections with other people are made quite easily. You might even have a lot of admirers, but I just think with Venus in the third, you might really get overwhelmed with the amount of admirers you have, because it's like you can easily relate to a lot of people. It's like having Venus in Pisces. You like actually mutual Venus placements, period. You can really connect and engage with a lot of people, but then when it comes to actually choosing the people that you need to choose, it becomes much harder. But I think with Venus in the third house, you kind of just ghost people that you feel are just not doing it for you, and then you just continue with the people that you feel are much more interesting. So short distance traveling is definitely enjoyable. You like weekend away. Social interactions are usually quite smooth and pleasant, and you might also have a really, really dope, pleasant voice. So especially if it's aspected by Mercury, so you may have an awesome singing voice, or even just the way you speak in J, it's just really lovely to hear. And then I have Mercury in the third house. So Mercury in the third house, I literally think of a library. I literally think of somebody just having like a huge library in their mind, and every time that they having conversations with people, they kind of just pull a book out and they just lay out all these facts, right? Because I feel like Mercury is a planet that's analytical, right? It's a planet that's logical, and then Mercury rules over the third house, so it's like meshing energies together. So this is definitely big smarts here, big smarts here. This is somebody who is engaging in conversation constantly, and they're not just engaging in conversation just for the sake of. They're really engaging in conversations that will help them grow, that will make them think better, that will make them interpret people better. Very intuitive as well here. They are able just to they're able to think quickly, they're able to think on their feet, and that's kind of like what makes them more receptively intuitive, or more intuitive to receive these messages from their environment. So these are the people that might also be a little bit nervous, like they're constantly anxious, like there's always something that they need to do, like they can never find a time where they can just chill on the knowledge, where they can just chill on the social interactions, where they can just chill, period. Obviously it will be different if you have Mercury in Taurus, which might just make your interactions just a bit slower. But if you have Mercury in air, or if you have Mercury in the mutual signs, then it's definitely going to be this energy where you just like can't stop learning, you can't stop analyzing facts. You just kind of I think to a large degree there's a large focus on collecting and just reading data, and obviously communicating that with the people around you. So I think it really can get overwhelming with Mercury in the third house, because it's like you don't know how much information is too much. You don't know how much information is too much to share. So you might be that person that is constantly engaged in conversation, because you just have this insatiable need to communicate or to learn or to read or to write, So there's a lot of information that is being received all at once. And I think that it can also be hard to communicate here because your mind works faster than your mouth. So you might be thinking 10,000 words in your mind that you really want to just get out in one go. But obviously, the thought processes and what comes out of the mouth is, obviously very different. So you might find that these people really have trouble. They may be people who just stutter, or they may be people that say and because they're really trying to recollect the thoughts in their mind. They're just trying to go back. They're just like, oh, okay, that was too fast and now I need to go backtrack, So these are the people that would be like, but, however, so just definitely do keep that in mind about these people. I think the lesson here is just to take a step back and breathe. Because this is literally information and sensory overload. And then, of course, we've got Mars in the 3rd house. I'm actually laughing at Mars in the 3rd house because I have Mars in the 3rd house. So, I've heard a lot about Mars in the 3rd house. But first things first, I think Mars in the 3rd house is definitely big. I said what I said energy. Like, this is the planet that will just, give it to you the way it is. Like, there's no... we're trying to sugarcoat none of that. So a lot of people perceive them as being very aggressive in the communication style. But I want to say we're not aggressive. I think it's more passion. We speak with passion. We listen attentively. We absorb, things attentively. We really are trying to engage. Like we're not fooling around when Mars is in the 3rd house. You know what I'm saying? So, granted, if you obviously do make them mad, then we'll definitely curse at you like we're sprinkling confetti. Okay, so we will absolutely cut you with our words. So don't even try us. I think another thing I've noticed about Mars in the 3rd house is that, as much as you yourself, you can be rah loud and, everything is just extra, with Mars in the 3rd house, you speak quite loud, you're just energetic in everyday life. But, I think there's also an ability, or there's also this an ability. I didn't want to say ability. I wanted to find another word, but my mind going through my vocab dictionary in my head is just a bit slower today. So, but anyway, I think you just have this ability to just attract people that are quite toxic in nature, and and by toxic in nature, I just mean like, these are people that like always try and put the blame on you, like for some reason, especially if like, your 3rd house is on the cusp of a water sign. So like Mars, singing to Mars. So like Cancer or Scorpio or even Pisces, you'll constantly find yourself like attracting these people that will say things. And then when you turn around and tell them those very same things that they said, they automatically want to gaslight you. And it's like, no, I never said that. And then that's when you start acting crazy, because it's like, now you're really making me angry because you said this, and now you're going back and you're saying you didn't say it. Now I'm coming out to be a liar. So I think that's why these people are constantly seeming like they are being defensive, because you did say that. Just admit it, acknowledge it, and we move on. Don't make it seem like I'm out here trying to make up, stuff about what you said. You know what I'm saying? So, there's definitely that energy, and some people might not even be that direct. I think a lot of the energy sometimes can be very, very subtle, where you literally think, was I not experiencing that reality? Was that all just a joke, or whatever the case is? So because Mars is associated with violence, it is quite possible that you may have lived or live in, a dangerous or quite a rowdy neighborhood, or you may even like places that are quite noisy, places that are quite lively, places that just represent life. Like, okay, there's people living here, like if something were to like there's just life basically. You can hear people are playing music, people are playing gospel, or people are talking. You really like that type of environment because it shows life. Remember, Mars is energetic energy, it's action orientated, so it needs to be around an action orientated environment. Okay, so also with Mars in the third house, you probably really enjoy banter, you enjoy engaging, you enjoy debates. Definitely short distance traveling will definitely do you good, because you're obviously that type of person that needs to get outdoors anyway, or you need to speak about being outdoors. So I think there's a lot of traveling in the mind if you're not really able to travel, in the physical. If you are able to do that, it definitely does, refreshen your outlook on life. So I think here people are also quite honest. People are very candid, with their thoughts, their feelings, their writing. However it is that they choose to express themselves, it really is going to be from the heart. And I think that's also why they get annoyed, or they get quite angry with people who don't share, the same opinions as them. Of course, I know this is totally wrong, but I just want to make people understand, from a broader perspective. It comes from passion. It comes from, the heart. It comes from really, engaging on a certain topic. So we feel when people don't agree with us, it's almost like we take it personally, because it's like, this is really how I feel about this. It's like, it's not a joke. Like, I really take this seriously. And then there you are disagreeing with me. So, it's kind of like an attack on me. Even though we know we shouldn't take it like that, we still take it personally. It is what it is, okay? Especially when Mars is in Aries or Scorpio, then you're definitely going to just see volcanoes just erupting like every now and then. So I think the lesson here is just to kind of, just be accepting that people will have their own opinions, and not to take everything so personally, and definitely start being less defensive. Like, stop feeling like you need to explain yourself to everything, to everyone, because at the end of the day, it's like, so you can't really subject yourself to that pressure all of the time. And next up, we have a Jupiter in the third house. So you guys know that I love Jupiter. This is the planet of expansion. It's the planet of wisdom, good fortune, and I think honestly just the gift of the gap here. But honestly, I think you have the gift of the gap because you just have so much to share. You have so much to talk about. You have so much to say. You have a lot of friends, because of course the third house also represents social interaction. So there's a lot of social energy here. This is a social house, so you may enjoy a lot of reading, you may enjoy a lot of writing, you may just be somebody that's really quite fun, you're just somebody that's quite amicable in most of your relations with people. You might even have, amicable relationships with your family, your friends, that kind of a thing. You may even have had like a lot of opportunities to travel quite a bit, or you just enjoy changing your scenery every now and then. So like, there's 4 weekends in a month, you probably go away 3 out of those weekends. 3 out of those weekends, you are basically just out here, living your life and just doing something really interesting, or just getting out there. And I think this is really good for you, because that like I said, Jupiter is the planet of wisdom, it's the planet of expansion. So you really expand your mind, you really expand your vocabulary, you really expand your relatability when you engage in the activities of, the third house. So when you travel, when you communicate, when you read, when you write, when you engage with people, you really expand your knowledge base. So this is like something that you obviously need to be doing. So Jupiter also rules over teachers, right? So either you teaching or people teaching you. The energy can go either way. So you might just have a knack just for teaching and sharing information that is really just valuable, to a lot of people. You could also be someone who just, has no boundaries, because remember with Jupiter, it's kind of like, it's expansive, there's no telling a Jupiter energy. There's no telling Jupiter energy to just calm down, or to not go too much, or it's go big or go home with this energy here. That's why it's also the ruler over Pisces, because Pisces also just has no boundaries, So I think here, And by boundaries, I just mean like there's no limit to your knowledge, there's no limit to your wisdom, there's no limit to your experiences. So you might be really going through a really, negative time in your life, but you can still look at whatever's happening in your life and still be like, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm still alive. I have all of my five senses working as they should be. I can still have social interactions with people. So you just basically have a very positive outlook on your life, and that definitely influences the relationships with the people that you have around you, because whatever you're thinking internally is exactly what is going to be projected outwardly. So that's definitely something to note. I think the lesson here would just to kind of be aware of what knowledge is, valuable and which isn't, because a lot of times you might find that, a lot of people just can't interpret information the way that you do. So what you think might be valuable might not necessarily be valuable to those people that you may be in conversation with. So Uranus in the 3rd house. So as always, the planet that represents the 11th house brings with it naturally shock, authenticity, flavor. And, when it's in the 3rd house, just expect the unexpected. Okay? The 3rd house also kind of rules authority in a way, because if your parents are in this house, then your parents are kind of like authority figures to you as you're growing up, or your guardian, or whoever might have authority over you for the first 18 years of your life. So you might have, with Uranus here, you might have really changed schools a lot, or you might have really gone through a lot of changes. And when I say changes, you may have changed like schools a lot. You may have changed where you lived a lot. You may have changed friends a lot. You may have come across like new family members every now and then. There's nothing stable about how you grew up. There's nothing stable about your communication style. There's nothing stable about your communications with the people around you. So this week you might speak to your siblings. Next week you guys are probably not. You guys are taking a break in between, or you might even be that person who just really has like really long breaks in between where you don't speak to your neighbors, or where you don't speak to the people around you in general. Or you might even be somebody who's perceived as quite popular around your environment. It just obviously depends on how Uranus is aspected, but definitely erratic and unstable energy here. And I think you just love being unique. So the way you write, the way you might even present yourself, the way you might dress, you like to talk about really interesting topics. So esoteric knowledge is really something that you'd probably be into or engage in a lot. You like to talk about, space. You like to talk about innovation. You like to talk about how you can change the world to become better, faster, or you might just even have like siblings that are quite unique, maybe, unique in their physical appearance, or even just, mentally, they might be really, really just on steroids when it comes to, intelligence. Uranus represents change. It represents innovation, independence, and thought. And how thought, comes in flashes. So I think just your way of being is just, out of the box. It's just like something that a lot of people around you probably can't even comprehend. People around you are probably just like, but why was this, really necessary? Did you really have to be this way? So you might think different, you might communicate differently, you might just have a perspective that is just overall different. And it might, I said might, be very refreshing to people around you. So you're always constantly finding ways to communicate your ideas more effectively. But I think the lesson here is just to know that, as much as you are different, and that's lovely and it's amazing that you're able to be yourself no matter what, because obviously Uranus is an energy that does not care about what other people think about them. I think it's just important to note that not everyone will be open to your energy or as open-minded, because you need to understand that people are on different frequencies, people are on different levels of comprehension. So you need to be mindful of that when people are not as accepting of your ideas, because they are quite radical, and a lot of the times your ideas are based on future complexities. They're not based on current solutions. So whatever solutions you do provide or do come up with, they are most likely not really appropriate for this current time life, or this current timeline, if I can put it that way. So people can find you quite outlandish, and they might find you quite overwhelming because you don't really think in a way that's linear. So do bear that in mind. Neptune in the third house, this reminds me so much of Mercury in Pisces, which is a placement that I actually adore. It's a placement that I love it. I love Mercury in Pisces, because I just feel people with this placement, these are just people that are amazing creators. And note that I said creators because I cannot personally limit how creative this placement is. So I don't want to say you're a creative speaker or you're a creative communicator, because there's no boundaries. Like I said, Neptune energy, Pisces energy, 12th house energy, there's just no limits, there's no boundaries to this energy. So creator is just so you might be somebody that's quite poetic. You're probably an amazing abstract thinker, you're a problem solver, you're an incredible songwriter if that's something you're really into. And your hands would probably just glide off of the canvas if you are a painter. And I think in everyday life you may just be generally scatterbrained when it comes to things that you need to do, like everyday life situations, because people just always feel like you're just not there, like you're constantly in a different, like we might be having a conversation about what's happening right now, and you're probably responding to something that is a future problem or a future conversation, or what I'm saying. So it's very hard to kind of ground this energy unless this energy, unless Capricorn is here, or unless Neptune is in Capricorn. Then it's more, it's brought back down to earth a little bit more. So do keep that in mind. But I think overall you just have, a peculiar skill in creating oneness through your communication style. You're quite easygoing. You're kind of down for anything. You're neither here nor there, because, and I think that's why your energy is admirable. I have Venus in Pisces, so like I said, I love this energy. Your thoughts, your perceptions may seem unrealistic to others, but I think you're mostly guided by intuition. And intuitive energy is not something that a lot of people are into. It's not something that a lot of people are exposing themselves to. So you're constantly in that space. You're constantly in an intuitive state of mind. You're constantly speaking out of intuition. A lot of the times, I would even say a lot of the times, that these people with this type of placements are people who speak things into existence. It's like these people are, it's either this person is a prophet or a prophetess. They're just like able to really absorb the things that are unseen and really bring them through the mouthpiece that allows for communication. So if you have these people around you, or you have Mercury in Pisces, these are definitely the people to listen to, because they are seers. Okay, these people are sages. These people are quite knowledgeable about things that are unseen. What else? There's just so much to cover. But your siblings may also be quite creative, or the majority of your family could be quite creative. You might come from a family that's just full of musicians, full of actors, or just full of painters, really artistic individuals who would do that as you would do that for a living. Your daily activities, like, they might seem like grand gestures, because obviously with this energy, almost everything is idealized. So you might feel like if for example you introduce a Mercury or a Neptune in the third house person to a musician, and if they love and adore this musician, they will absolutely thank you forever and a day. Like, you will never hear the end of them thanking you about you introducing them to this artist. And everything is just, exaggerated. It is such an exaggerated appreciation. That's what I'm trying to describe. There's such an exaggerated appreciation for things that people do for them on a daily basis, or even things that they do. They might be the type of people to be like, yo, I stumbled across such an amazing butterfly, and you might just be like, what? Well, what's so amazing about that? But to them, it really is. Because remember, they are in one with nature, they are in one with the environment, they are in one with a lot of the people around them. They understand concepts much quicker, even though they might not say anything. So definitely something to keep in mind. So I think the lesson would be here to try, and remain grounded as much as possible, especially when it comes to your everyday interactions with people. To also just be and think of yourself as much as you think about others, and just not to be afraid to share your talents with other people. So Pluto in the third house. Every time I think about or even say the word Pluto visually or even just out loud, I'm always just thinking, how is it possible to be the most powerful person and to really be on top of the world, like literally, but also be able to reach the depths of human psychology at the same time? That's literally what I think about when it comes to Pluto. Like Pluto, as much as people don't talk about it, it's a very dual energy. These are the type of people that can use their power for greatness, and they're also the type of people who can use their power for not so amazing things, destructive things, So I literally think of Pluto as this no-nonsense planet that can just see through everything. And even though through seeing and experiencing a whole lot of stuff that should probably have drove them crazy and over the edge, they still manage to keep things moving. I already spoke about the fact that, Mercury is Mercury, the third house is an energy that is all about, the mind. It's all about intuition. So when you put it together with Pluto, you can already imagine this is probably something with an extremely powerful mind. This is somebody that can literally akakaji umqondo womuntu in less than, a couple of minutes, but they do it in such a way that's so subtle. So you subtly give into their power, you subtly become submissive to somebody who has Pluto, in the third house. They really are able to make you aware of different ways of interpreting things. I love that energy for that reason, because they're able to interpret things completely differently to what you're able to comprehend them at. Because obviously, remember, they are able to take it really to the highest highs, and they're able to take it to the lowest lows. So when you're listening to them, it's really easy to see how they go in and out of this dual energy. Pluto is also Pluto in the third house. I think of as somebody who's really a powerful manifester, because remember, these are people that can visualize things. These are people that can think quite powerful thoughts. These are people that can create realities out of thought. So definitely majestic, definitely really blessed at manifesting. And I think if you're not using your energy to do that, you should definitely think about starting to do that. The faith of these people is definitely unwavering. These people communicate so effectively. It really builds an affinity with other people, because people feel like they can trust you. They can trust your word. They can trust your actions as well. I think you may have really had a lot of intense encounters with your siblings, with neighbors, or just people, in your immediate environment, because you're just constantly and consistently going through transformations, and you may even feel extremely ostracized because you're one way 1 year, and then the next year you're just something else completely, I also feel like you may have quite violent thoughts, especially if Pluto is in Scorpio, or if it's aspecting to Mars. You might literally, for example, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, just got into an Uber, and you're probably thinking, wow, this person could literally chop my body up into pieces and put me in the boot of the car and throw me into a river where I'll not be found until infinity. That's literally the types of thoughts that you might be thinking. So, in the third house, Pluto is associated with paranoia and insecurity because, like I said, Pluto energy is so intuitive. It literally can, like, there's no veil with, Pluto. So they may have sometimes thoughts that are not in line with what's actually happening. So they might think that something is actually going a specific way, but they have, interpreted completely wrong. And it takes a long time for people to even convince them that that is actually not how this is going down. Because, like I said, Pluto, Scorpio is such a fixed energy, So as soon as they have a thought in their mind of how things are happening, that's exactly how it is in their mind, and it's going to take them a long time to actually change that, because remember, they rely heavily on their intuition. So if their intuition is warped or it's unreliable, they themselves won't even be able to know the difference, which is quite dangerous. I think here the lesson is just to kind of allow yourself to, have contradicting thoughts. Allow yourself to not be so fixed on one thought pattern or on one way of doing things, or relying on one type of relationship. Another thing I wanted to add before I move on to Saturn, I did want to mention the fact that, with Pluto being in the third house, this is somebody that's probably burdened with a lot of people's secrets. So you might know family secrets here. So a lot of people might come to you and confide in you and just kind of dump all of their deep stuff on you, and you're just like, can you not? I really don't want to know this about you. But I think people do that because they know that you're not about to go and spill their private stuff to, the rest of the family. So you definitely might be the family confidant here. So, it is what it is. Last but not least, we have Saturn. So Saturn in the third house. I'm really fond of this placement. Saturn is logical and a very practical planet. So it relies heavily on its independence. It relies heavily on realism, and it's a very focused nature. And because it's so focused, this is what allows it to succeed, and this is what brings it consistency. So all of which, the things that the third house really isn't, So I think it's a really great compliment to have Saturn in the third house, because, we've already talked about how the third house is neither here nor there, right? It's a very fluid, flexible energy. It's a very flighty energy. It's a very quick energy. So I think with Saturn here, it kind of just stabilizes the energy. We do know that Saturn is the stabilizer. It just kind of just makes everything, grounded for the most part. It makes everything reliable. It makes us feel like we can definitely trust what is happening here. If Saturn is there, there's an element of trust there. So I really love this, because it allows for stability. It allows for stability is what my mind is thinking. Like, my mind is just stability. Like, it's just like gift, stability. I think all of the ideas that might come from the third house and Saturn person are scrutinized and are met with questions concerning practicality. So I might think of, traveling to space, but then Saturn here is kind of like, is that practical? What would you need? How much would you need? Who would you need to speak to? Who would be the best person to connect you to people if you don't have anybody within your network that is into that kind of stuff, or that can make this a reality? All of those questions are definitely and this is the type of energy that you need, honestly. Or even Mercury and Capricorn, this is definitely the type of energy that you would want, because it allows you to put thought into practicality. So you're not going to be stagnant in moving, basically. So you're going to come up with the thoughts, you're going to think about everything practically, and then you're going to be able to to execute. So it's basically, it brings thought into execution when you have Saturn here, provided of course that it is, positively aspected. We want to see positive aspects to Saturn majority of the time, because if it's negatively aspected, then it just makes everything more delayed, right? Because Saturn is the planet of time, it's the planet of karma, so if Saturn is negatively aspected, it just makes everything more dragged out, so trust and believe that even just forging relationships with family or siblings, or even people around them in their daily life is going to take forever. It's really going to take forever, and this is just due to them having really low vibrational thoughts even about themselves. I think a lot of the time they don't really appreciate the energy that they possess. A lot of the times you'll find Capricorns with really low self-esteem, and honestly it gets better as they start get older, but like for the most part it really is difficult, especially when you're younger. It's really, really difficult to find that confidence within yourself, because you've constantly been met with responsibility, right? You were never really allowed to be yourself. You're never really allowed to be a child. You were never really allowed to kind of just not have to worry about anything. Remember that Saturn is the planet of responsibility, so you are met with responsibility even when you were young. So it kind of starts early, so you may be considered as the wet blanket when it comes to hanging out or socializing, or you may even enjoy socializing, but then you might just be the person that's just really socially awkward, so you just make the whole experience just awkward for everybody else involved. I think in school you may really have been a teacher's pet, or you may have been a head boy, or you may have been a head girl. You might have been just really, really overly mature for your age. I think in your home environment, you also might have had really strict or even distant or cold parents who constantly wanted everything in order. So if you're packing your wardrobe, they would have wanted your clothes to be color coordinated specifically, and for everything to be folded, for like t-shirts to be folded, for shirts to be hung, coats to be hung, shoes to be yeah, you guys get what I'm trying to say. So, Saturn here also just means, being a leader, or you're just the person that is just emotionally mature to kind of check in with, everyone else. So I think Saturn is really an amazing energy. If you know how to work with Saturn energy, it can really benefit you a lot. And that's all I've got for you, my tubers. A reminder, tubers, to take what resonates and leave the rest. I always hope to bring clarity in the understanding or study of astrology, and I hope you have understood a little bit more about astrology. Until my next video, on that note, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Which placements you have. Show me some love and subscribe to my channel if you'd like, and feel I have brought value to your understanding of astrology. As always, your time spent is much appreciated. Till next time, you know what you do, so keep doing what you do. Peace, love, and most of all light. I'm out.